Hi everyone, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever said to yourself, I know what to do, I just don't do it? Well, there might be some science behind it. I'm not making excuses for you, but today I want to actually show you with proven science how to effectively change your habits. So, habits are daily ingrained behaviors that have three components to them. And so I want to share that with you today, and we're going to go through a little bit more of specifically how you can not break a habit but change it. There's been a lot of research in the past 20 years around how habits are formed, and what scientists and researchers have realized is that you can't break a habit, but you can change it. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today and help you get to the goals that you want for 2018. So habits have three different distinct components to them. We usually just think of a habit as a behavior, but that's really only the one part of it. So the routine is really the behavior. That's something that we habitually do. But really there's multiple parts to forming a habit. So the first piece is the cue or trigger. So we can call the cue the trigger. And we'll get back to that. There's multiple different things that can contribute. There's 5 different things that can contribute to a trigger that might not be things that you think of off the top of your head. So the whole point of this video is to really help you cue in, no pun intended, and really help focus you to be aware of where these cues and rewards are coming from so you can wind up changing this behavior. So there's always a cue, there's a trigger. We can talk about that. There's a behavior that's associated, and then the reward. So there's always a reward. It could be 2 things, it could be 15 things, but there's always those 3 components. Now, when we look at the cue part of it, so it could be maybe the time of day, it could be a place, it could be the presence of other people. Maybe it's a social gathering like Thanksgiving, which is coming up tomorrow. Maybe it's just a ritual, maybe it's a habit that you do every day. Or maybe it's an emotional trigger. So there's 5 different ways that cues or triggers can manifest or come to fruition. Then the reward is something that your body sees as a pleasurable experience. So you want to continue to access that reward through this behavior. So let's just take a quick example of nail biting. That's something that is a habit. And often nail biting is due to boredom or anxiety, tension, and the body doesn't want to feel tension. The body would rather feel pain than tension. So there's been studies done that show that nail biting actually dispels some of that tension by causing pain. And so, like I said, your body would rather feel somewhat a sense of pain rather than having that tension. So actually nail biting, ironically enough, helps to relieve tension through accessing pain receptors in the body. So what could the cue be? Maybe you're sitting at your desk and you're just really bored, and all of a sudden you find your hand in your mouth and you're biting your nails. And I know a lot of people that do this. So the reward, like say the cue would be maybe you're at work and that's your trigger, is you're bored or you're anxious at work. You know that you're due for your yearly review, for example. That could be the trigger. The behavior is the actual nail biting, and then the reward is dispelling some of that tension. So every habit has a reward. Let's give another example. Say that every day around 3 o'clock you have a craving for something sweet or cookies. Let's just take a cookie example. Maybe you look at the different possibilities for the cue and you run through everything and say, okay, well, is it the time of day? Is it the place, the presence of other people? Maybe it's a ritual, or is it an emotional thing that's causing me to want to have this cookie? So you would look at the cues and try to become aware of what that trigger is. Then you would also want to look not only at the cue, but also at the reward. So what is the reward that you're getting from eating this cookie? Are you really just hungry? Is it that you need a burst of energy, so you're looking for a sugar fix? Is it something that you just want something crunchy or maybe something sweet? So once you discover what that reward is, whatever that is for you, it can be so many different things, then you're able to change the behavior and do something else. So let me give you an example related to this cookie concept. So say that you know at the same time every day between 3 and 4 you start to crave sugar and you want to go to the vending machine at work. And then you realize, oh, well, maybe I'm just tired at that time and it's not really a craving for sugar. So then you can come up with other solutions. You can change your habit and shift it. So, for example, you could have a cup of coffee instead, or you could maybe go for a walk and just kind of, take a break, go for a stroll outside, get some energy, or you can choose something else. Once you diagnose what the cue is, what the reward is, you can change this middle part and work to effectively change these habits. Like I said, you're not going to break the habit, but you could change it so that it's more of a healthy pattern, or maybe something else that isn't going to be so destructive to your health. And that this is a great example. I have had certain habits in my life related to binge eating, realizing that a lot of my triggers were centered around the environment that I was in, the emotions I was having at that time, then realizing the reward was feeling a certain way, feeling full, maybe, or feeling connected, whatever that emotion is. So mine was really emotional eating. And so I learned how to not deprive myself. I learned what my triggers were and how I could work to, maybe nourish my body throughout the day so I wasn't going to that other habit of binging. So I replaced a lot of those habits, and now I am healthy, I'm eating normally. So, it just goes to show that even something like an eating disorder or, an addiction, they've studied a lot of these habit changes there as well. Even if it's something as small as nail biting or something as big as an addiction, you can make those small gains and wind up really changing habits in a positive way. So I think that this is a great tool that you can use in order to break up some of the things that are routine for you and learn how to, get creative about creating new habits. And so the last thing that I want to mention is there was some research done on this habit reversal therapy, where people would actually carry around an index card. And let's go back to the example about biting your nails. People would make a check mark every time. They would have an index card and make a check mark every time they found themselves wanting to bite their nails or already biting their nails. Sometimes it's just so habitual. And this increases your awareness. So you have this card and you're checking off every time you're doing the habit. It cues you into the fact that you're doing the habit and allows you to physically say, oh, wow, okay, so this is when it's happening. And so you can also, whenever you wind up changing the reward, you can do a little hash mark like that. And so it takes about 2 weeks to to change habits. But once you become aware and you're making these check marks on the index card, your brain starts to realize, oh, okay, I bit my nails. It's time for me to do this. Oh, I went to go to the vending machine. Okay, make a check. And it's not a punishment system. It's just a way for you to start to become aware of what these habits are, what the cues are, and then what your reward can be. So changing the reward, you're going to want to put a check mark. So as you're building these habits, you're going to be figuring out what's driving the habit. And again, that's really, the behavior is only a third of the whole equation. So looking at these other two components can really help you to see what some other options are for these behaviors and really get to the root cause of why you do what you do. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give me a like, share, and subscribe, and I will talk to you guys soon. Take care.